Hi everyone, so I got a lot of requests to talk about how I turn my thoughts into visuals and translate them into my own filmmaking. There's a lot of advice out there that will either work for you or it won't. And there is no incorrect or correct advice, I think. So this is mainly my way. Hopefully it might help you somehow. Okay, so I think a lot of people have problems with translating their thoughts into film because they don't know about the conventions yet entirely, and it's super easy. So the first shot we're going to talk about is the wide shot, and this basically has the whole body in it. It shows the location, and a lot of people use this as an establishing shot as well to tell the viewer as quickly as possible where the character is. The next shot would be the medium shot, which is usually above the knee or the waist up depending on how close you like getting. And the close-up would be about the collarbone and above the forehead. For some other people it's even closer, which other filmmakers would call an extreme close-up. It's quite subjective and it changes, and you could also use a lot of different angles to push a certain feeling. So for example, if you wanted to make your character feel really small and meek, you use a higher angle to look down at the character. Or if you want to make a character look really powerful, put it at a very low angle facing upwards, so it makes this character look huge and dominating. Alright, so now we're gonna get into storyboarding, and I think a lot of people kind of get a little worried when they hear the term storyboarding because they're very new to it. What I have found extremely helpful are comic books. An example, there was this dude, I can't pronounce his name, he's Belgian, but he made Tintin. He started making comics, I believe, in the early 1900s, and this is also when narrative filmmaking started to really take off. So he was really influenced by cinematic qualities, but he really treated his comics like the camera was moving. Like you can see in the background that the horizon line is slowly shifting because the camera is panning with the character. If we're going to talk about a Latin-based language, so let's say English, you read it from left to right. It's just natural psychologically to see a sequence move from left to right. So you will also see a character walk from the left to right. And generally, if you have a good-natured character, they will be placed on the left side of the screen. And if you have a bad-natured character, they would be placed on the right side of the screen. And this is just to cause some psychological discomfort within the viewer. It's all these little, very subtle cues that play in your subconscious as you're watching something. You don't realize why a character is making you feel uncomfortable just in terms of placement. Tintin is moving from left to right because he forgets something, so he has to go back to get his book at the flat, and he starts moving the other way. He goes back into the sequence, and that immediately gives a cue to the reader that we have to feel uncomfortable now, that something's wrong. It's not natural, he's moving against the sequence. What's really great about comics is that they pick the exact moment of a single frame that they have to show you to really get the story across and the emotions across. So that's why I really recommend just getting used to reading them. My favorite comic would have to be either Why the Last Man or the Fables series. Okay guys, so this is the practice segment of the video. So we're gonna start off with an exercise that is based off of a book, any book that you can just grab within reach. And I'm just gonna grab this one that I've read recently. It's called The Hunger and the Howling of Killian Lone. I'm picking an introductory paragraph in the first chapter. So I think using someone else's work for just practice is really good because you're going off of no visuals at all. So to start off with, I was born crying on an early day of frost in October 1965, and the first words that my mother ever said to me were skin and bone. The nurse who had placed me in her arms gently reassured her, "Really, Mrs. Lone, he's perfectly healthy." "Well, he's breathing," said my mother with a reluctant nod. "I suppose that's a start." So right now we're gonna look at descriptive keywords. So we know that the nurse must be a bubbly person, she must be very kind because she's using such positive words. And the mother, says, "Well, he's breathing, I suppose that's a start." We know she is very unhappy about this birth. She's probably thinking she ruined her figure for her baby, maybe a bit of postpartum depression going on there. That's a lot to work off of. And now we're gonna make it into a scene. I'm gonna draw for you guys, and we're gonna start off by doing really conventional shots using all the conventions I had spoken about. I'm gonna start recording now so you guys can see my point of view. So we know that there's a hospital. Pretend that's a hospital. Something happened to my nib. I'm gonna write 1965. We know that there is a woman who just received her baby. I'm doing it as simply as possible because I don't want you guys to have any excuses. I don't ever want to hear someone say, "But I can't draw, so I can't storyboard." I will never work with someone unless they have a storyboard. If they don't know what they want, then I definitely don't know what they want. I think when you take ownership of that and just go ahead and storyboard it in whatever way you can, you should go ahead and do it. Honestly, you can use stick men because that helps a lot when it comes to framing and everything. So the nurse is kind of in the foreground. She goes like, "Ah, he's only skin and bones." skin. Nurse reassures her, so we're thinking, okay, there's gotta be a reaction shot then. So yeah, we can say that we can do this whole scene in just 4 thumbnails. It just starts off with this establishing shot. We know it's a hospital. A title comes up saying 1965, and then it goes inside. We know that there's a baby who's screaming and crying, and the mom's like, it's just skin and bones. And then the nurse is like, no, he's perfectly healthy. And she's like, well, I guess that's a start. And she's very reluctant. All of this just seems really conventional and boring, to be very, very honest. Okay, and I'm gonna push back in once more with the way that I would typically shoot a scene like this. I'm gonna actually start inside the hospital room already, and we can just make this really gory. So this would be a close-up of medical instruments all over the place, and they're all covered in blood, and we just hear the mother screaming. So the cuts happen each time that the mother lets out another scream or grunt or whatever, and we could play with the foreground. So like, let's say it's the same medical tray, and here's like all the tissues and stuff, and this is what's in focus, and then out of focus we can see way into the corner is the mom with her legs up, and then there's like a surgeon here, so you're kind of like, whoa, what is going on? You can kind of guess already that, okay, there's a lady giving birth here, but it still adds a lot of theatrics. It can be really crude here and just show like maybe her knees sticking up, so under the blanket of course, and then these are her feet in the stirrups, if that makes any sense. That the doctor has lifted up the baby and his hands are there. So this is the doctor, and then that's the umbilical cord. And we kind of just make all this like really nasty, and you can add in color if you want to kind of push the mood a bit more. I'd make it very blue and then just like this really dark red that just sticks out. And I'd never ever show the baby's face because the mom is just so unhappy with the child. Frame her with the umbilical cord in the way and have her like somewhere off in the distance and she's looking at it. And what if the lighting is just really bad on her face and it's mostly just like darkness? She's just really upset and she just says skin and bones when she sees the child, and you just see like these feet dangling. So the nurse comes into the shot, so she's crushed even more into this background and into this darkness, and the nurse just says, I'm sure he's perfectly healthy and fine and beautiful and stuff, and she's giving her the baby and she's just like so depressed about it. And I wouldn't cut at all. I just have the nurse just come in and say that, because the nurse isn't actually important to the story, so I'm just gonna show her just come in for a second, but keeping the mom in the shot, always keeping the mom there. We always have to give our viewer a lot of credit for being smarter than we think. And instead of telling the viewers that this is 1965, I would let that be told through the production design. So everyone's clothes would be clothes from the 60s. The equipment would look like old equipment. Everything would give visual cues to our viewers to know that it's 1965. And since our viewers know what a hospital looks like, what a hospital is, we don't need to show the exterior of the hospital. We don't need to show the hallways. All we need to show is that, okay, this has gone down. They'll know from the hospital bed, they'll know from the hospital equipment around her. They're like storyboard templates that you can just download really easily, and it gives you like 9 thumbnails and enough space to write notes underneath each one. Or what you can do is, which I kind of prefer, is taking a piece of hard paper and just folding it into sections until you get all these little rectangles, and then just cutting it up. You can lay it out on a table and you can rearrange them so you're not sequentially locked to a certain order, and it helps you experiment more when you're trying to make things more unconventional and more cinematic. I mean, rules are there so that you could learn them and then learn how to break them. And that's the fun part of art. I like using sticky notes, and I just find them really easy because I can change them up whenever I wanna, and I'm not locked down to anything, and they're really tiny, so I don't go into too much detail when I'm drawing stuff. I just keep it as very simple lines, just shading a little bit to show if something's in the foreground, if it's in the background, mid-ground, and all that kind of stuff. But definitely, I always ask for a filmmaker to bring in visual references. Take your keywords. If you're gonna be shooting in a hospital, just type in hospital short film into like Vimeo or something, and you just screenshot whatever shots you really like and just print them out. Just like make a little collage of them. They pick out the type of colors, the type of lighting style that they would really love for their film, and it's just a lot of research, and you're just gonna be watching a lot of films. An exercise for when you leave me, and I would really love to see you guys do this and take a photo and send it to me and stuff. That would be really awesome. Take one of your favorite films ever, take a bit of a fast-paced scene, make sure you have the ability to freeze frame any moment of it. Each new shot that comes up within that scene, hit pause and thumbnail it out. Just draw exactly what you see as like simple line forms. You can do it as stickmen, it's totally fine. and do that for 100 frames. And this will really help you snap into understanding how people get into storyboarding, how they pace out a story, how they tell it, when they use a reaction shot, when they don't. So really, it's about confidence and just saying like, okay, I'm gonna try and do it, and just walking on set with maybe the crappiest storyboard ever and the crappiest stickman you ever could have drawn and the worst rectangles you ever could have used, but it shows that you have vision and you're trying and you're working on it. And that will always be applauded rather than not trying and just giving up from the start and just thinking you're not good enough, because you're gonna get there. And I think we're all working towards getting there. We don't know where there is. Really great filmmakers still don't think they're good. So that's kind of reassuring in a really sad way. I'm going to be making another video about lighting and how I do lighting and how I edit. So I think that could be helpful to some people, hopefully. Thank you so much for requesting this video, and thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys later. Bye!